Hello, I'm Alexandra J. Johnson with the Entheos Academy for Optimal Living. Today I am chatting with Will Bowen about his course, A Complaint-Free World. Will is the founder of A Complaint-Free World and an international best-selling author who has been featured on Oprah and The Today Show. And he has also inspired millions of people from around the world. If you like this interview, you can sign up for his course below. Enjoy. Hello, Will. It's so great to be chatting with you today.
It's my pleasure, Alexandra. Thanks for having me.
Well, I love your purple bracelet, and in honor of the interview, I put a purple bracelet on as well. So, can you talk about this purple bracelet and talk about what inspired you to create this kind of revolution, a complaint-free world, and write your book?
Well, it's really funny. I didn't set out to create a revolution. People have asked me, how do you create a worldwide movement? And I don't know. I basically was doing a series of talks on prosperity. And Edwin Gaines, in her book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, talked about the fact that people say that they want to be prosperous in their lives, but they spend all their time complaining about what they don't want, which perpetuates what they want. So she was the one who actually suggested that we try and make it habitual and go 21 days without complaining. My addition was the complaint-free bracelet, and it was the idea of you put the bracelet on either wrist, and every time you catch yourself complaining, you simply take it off that wrist and you move it to the other wrist to know what day you're on. You're on day 1, day 2, and as many people know, it takes 4 to 8 months to go 21 consecutive days, but then the idea exploded around the world. We started getting immediately calls and requests for bracelets, and as of now, we're a little over 10 million bracelets in 106 countries and still sending them out all the time.
That's so incredible. So amazing. And can you tell us, I know you'll be going through this in your course, but can you tell us the basic rules? That, if somebody wants to do the 21-day challenge, what are the basic rules?
Well, the basic rules really are you don't even have to use one of our bracelets. A lot of people have used a rubber band, or they put a stone in their pocket. We had some people at the Pentagon who can't wear a bracelet because that's not official uniform. So what they did was they put a bracelet on one side of their desk, and every time they complained, they moved it to the other side of their desk just to monitor themselves. Mm-hmm. But the idea that it's very simple. With every time you complain, criticize, or gossip, which all fall under complaining, and you simply start over again. We are habituated to complain. People gripe and complain all the time, and it's funny. I like to say that complaining is like bad breath. You notice it when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, but not when it comes out of your own. So the first thing we've got to do is to make you aware that you are complaining. And so every time you complain, you switch it. Now, if you see somebody else wearing a complaint-free bracelet and you hear them complain, if you tell them to switch their bracelet, you've got to switch yours first, because we don't want to make people bracelet cops. This is about making them self-aware of how often they complain. Yep. And the idea is to go 21 consecutive days. Most people go day 1, 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 and finally you'll get to day 2. Then you're back to day 1. But once you stay at it, it actually gets easier and easier, and your success compounds over time.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, and I personally appreciate your work. I read your book in like 2 days, and we were in Ecuador, so we didn't have a bracelet. And I've got to be honest, I've only made it to like 12 days.
That's still pretty impressive.
As far as I've made it. And it's amazing. Like you said, you don't realize how much little complaint, gossip, like here and there, and it's amazing. So why is it so challenging for us to stop this complaining, gossiping, and criticizing?
It's simply because it's habitual. That is the main reason. It's habitual, and anytime you attempt to change a habit, as you and Brian know with your work, anytime you attempt to change a habit, you have got a great momentum moving you in a certain direction. I like to say it's like you're on a plane at 600 miles an hour. You're moving along at 600 miles an hour. Now, you may decide to turn that plane and go, if you're going south, to all of a sudden go east. Well, your body is going to pull and strain in that direction. Well, your psychological way of being is going to try and pull you in that direction. You've also got people who think you need to complain. I was at the dry cleaners yesterday, and there were two people talking about how, you know how bad crime is these days, you know how terrible crime is these days, and you can't let your kids outdoors. Well, the truth is the crime rate in this country has gone down every single decade for the last 3 decades. We live in the safest time ever. And there's some tragedy going on here in Kansas City, as there is in every city if you look for it. And the woman said, well, my gosh, it's all over the news. And I said, there is no news. There's bad news. And that's what people watch and call the news. But there's no such thing as the news. And then she started telling me about this. And I said, whoa, telling me about it is not going to improve it. So people are, as Eckhart Tolle says, they're in their pain bodies. And the way that they perpetuate that is by complaining. Our thoughts create our lives, and our words indicate what we're thinking. Most people think they're very positive, but when they start monitoring their complaints, they go, wow. But if you can get rid of that, it's ear pollution, it's toxic. You have to get rid of that to truly transform your life, I feel.
That's amazing. Yeah, and so I love in your book, too, you talk about this idea that there's something in us where we're like, we just have to say it. Like, there's like this urge, like you have to say it. And I'm just wondering, what's the benefit of not saying it? What's the benefit of not complaining, not criticizing? Why would we ever want to go on this adventure?
Well, it's really funny. Complaining, I've done a lot of research over the last 5 years on complaining. Complaining has been found to limit your success in life, in your career. There's been copious amounts of research that shows that complaining destroys relationships. In the early 1930s, a psychologist began to study relationships, marriages that had gone bad. Now, you've got to remember, in the 1930s, most people would never get divorced.
Right.
Unhappy people who had been divorced, he looked for the number one thing, and it was the amount of complaining that took place in the relationship. Complaining to each other and complaining about each other. Complaining has also been found to, it was damaging to your career, damaging to your health, damaging to your relationships. The biggest problem with complaining is it keeps your focus on the problem rather than looking for the solution. That is the biggest problem. People say that they want things to improve in their lives, but they're clinging assiduously to the way things are by constantly talking about it. And if I tell you about it, and if you explain to me how it can be improved, well, I'm probably going to leave you alone and go tell somebody else. Because complaining is the ultimate self-limiting behavior. I was just posting on Facebook about this, that people complain as a way of saying, it's not my fault. I can't fix it. Please agree with me that I'm a victim in this so that I don't have to actually try. And you can be a victim or you can be a victor. Complainers are victims.
Right. That's so awesome. I love it. So inspiring. And what about, I know you're going to talk about this in the course too, but I'm curious just to get the idea of the 4 stages. Can you talk a little bit about those 4 stages?
Yeah, I would love to know who came up with these 4 stages. My editor, my publisher, and I have all looked into it, and the closest we've heard is that it was some Harvard professor, which sounds pretty good, but it wasn't me, so I just want to own that. There are 4 stages of being competent in anything. The 4 stages are unconscious incompetent, conscious incompetent, conscious competent, and unconscious competent. Now, that sounds very heady. Let me explain it. As I mentioned in my book, one of my hobbies is juggling. Now, if you've never tried to juggle, you are in the unconscious, incompetent stage. You can't juggle. If you've never tried, you can't. I've never seen anybody pick up 3 balls and keep them going, but you've never tried. So you're unconscious as to your incompetence. As soon as you begin to juggle, you become conscious of your incompetence. Now, once you really start working at it, people will do this and they'll have to focus very hard when they're trying to juggle. That's the conscious competent stage. Now, I've been juggling for so many years, I could sit here and talk to you and juggle and wouldn't even have to think of it. It's unconscious incompetence. So the same is true in becoming complaint-free. Right. Most people are incompetent. They're walking around right now, they have no idea how much they complain. As soon as they put the bracelet on, they become conscious of their incompetence. They can't stop complaining. It's like Stop me before I complain again. And they can't. They then move into the conscious competence stage. This is what I call the I'm not going to move my bracelet stage. You start to say something and you say, but I'm not going to move my bracelet. Then if you stay with it, you move into unconscious competence. You literally don't complain. You don't think about it. It's simply not who you are. So those are the 4 stages.
That's so awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool. I think I'm in the conscious competence? No. Yeah, the conscious competence.
Day 12, you're in the conscious competence stage. You're watching what comes out of your mouth, right?
For sure. Yeah, totally. And there's it's so great too, because I love this process of when it first started. There was oh my gosh, the awareness. Then you start noticing and you're like, I said it, but I'm aware of it. You know, like you're aware that you were, you got to move your bracelet. So it's so great. It's such a great phase. I love that stage, those stages of transformation.
Thank you.
It's very cool. So what about, I just got to get clear on this for my own personal, and I think it'll help other people, because I think that gossip is such a huge thing in our culture of talking about other people. So can you tell us the definition of gossip and how that plays into this 21-day challenge?
Well, gossip is basically, I'm not going to give you an official definition of gossip. I'm going to give you mine. Gossip is basically bragging. Gossip is a way of saying, I don't have the character flaw about the person I'm talking about. You never gossip about somebody and say something positive. I mean, you wouldn't even call it gossip. You wouldn't say, I've got some juicy gossip, Alexandria. Do you know she got all A's on her report card? That's not gossip, Gossip is, I've got some juicy gossip. She's seeing another guy on the side. That's gossip. Gossip by its very nature is bad, and we also don't talk about gossip in a way, or don't say things about somebody that are also true about ourselves. So it's a way of bragging. It's a way of saying, I don't have that character flaw. I'm superior to that person. And anybody who's going around trying to be superior truly feels inferior inside. So it's a mark of gross insecurity to gossip about other people. People say, but it's so much fun. Or they say, you mean I can't gossip at all? And I say, sure, you can gossip. I have 2 recommendations. Number 1, what you say is positive. And number 2, you would say it the same way if the person were right there in front of you. And they always go, that takes all the fun out of it. It's like, right, because you're not trying to convey information. What you're trying to do is to act superior to another person.
Awesome. And it's so cool too, because when you're willing to let go of that, right, you access your, as you said, the victor. You access that empowered, you're the creator of your life.
Right, exactly.
So empowering. Why? And then once you become aware of this, why would you want to indulge in that anymore? It's like, it truly gets to where it feels icky. Totally. It really does. And here's the other thing. Once you become a complaint-free person, once you become a person who doesn't complain or gossip, you're going to attract a very different crowd in your life. You really are. And so I think if there's any kind of a word of warning, it's that, they say you can't fly with the eagles and scratch with the turkeys. The turkeys are going to be repelled by you, and you're going to be repelled by them. But, it's okay. And it's all right. If you want to be a turkey, you want to scratch, you want to be unhappy, that's okay. If you want to really, as I think Brian would say, you want to rock this life, you got to stop complaining about what is and start talking about what you want. Great. And so one more question on who is this class for? Anybody? Can you just tell us who this class is for?
Well, I would say the class is for anybody who, I would say for skeptics, for people who think they don't complain, for people who think that they don't really who think they may not benefit from this. Just to approach it from an open mind and to begin to understand the ways in which complaining is damaging, the ways in which complaining is harmful, But there are 5 reasons that people complain. Every time somebody complains, it falls under one of 5 reasons. Now, I just finished writing an expanded and updated version of my book because it's topped 1 million in sales. I'm saying it's 1 million books sold. It's coming out in paperback. So, what I've discovered is that people complain for one of 5 reasons, which I cover in my book, but there are also things you can do to get people to not complain. That's the one thing people have asked me. How do I get people around me not to complain to me? That's what I'm going to cover. And I think that that's really worth the entire time. To live in a more sanguine environment, to be able to use psychological jujitsu to redirect someone's negative energy so that it deflects. Powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's so awesome, so amazing. Just the power of us really owning that is so great that we have that power. It's truly remarkable, and I love it too because it's so simple. It's something that we can every one of us can do every single day, and we can impact our lives, and we really can change the world. I mean, as you have a complaint-free world, what would it look like if it was a complaint-free world? That's pretty miraculous and amazing.
Yeah, it's actually, we have it on YouTube, but we gave the 6 millionth bracelet to Dr. Maya Angelou. Mm-hmm. And I went to her home in North Carolina and presented it to her. And she talked about what it would be like. Our goal is to have 1% of the world become complaint-free. That's 60 million people. We feel if we do that, it will have a ripple effect to everybody in the world. But she said that there would be no more war, no more poverty, all of this begins with complaining. Think about it. Would we ever go to war without building a case against the people, the people and the regime and everything, which is truly done through complaining? The answer is no, we never would do that. So if we can eradicate complaining, we can stop war. There is a group that is giving away our bracelets to gangs in Los Angeles because they feel that it's the best way to stop gang violence, because no gang member is going to start a war against another gang without first complaining. And so it's actually a priest there is doing this as a way of using the boys' competitive egos as a way of stopping violence.
Brilliant. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I've been deeply inspired by your work, and I'm very excited about this course, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my honor. I've enjoyed working with you all and look forward to continuing.
Fantastic. Have a wonderful day.
You too.